pleased to have joining us this afternoon a candidate for U.S. Congress. She is seeking the position, which she's running for the office of the nomination as Republican candidate for U.S. House District 1, the new district, Ashley Nicole Russell. And with that, Ashley, good afternoon.
Good to see you.
And thank you very much for taking the time to do this.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Let's talk here for a moment about you and your background. Where are you from originally?
So I am originally from Albemarle, North Carolina, which is northeast of Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom and dad are from Wilson and Goldsboro. So my mom worked in tobacco and the paper mills, and they met, and I ended up going to college. I was the first person out of my family to go to college. When they divorced, I actually went to public assisted housing. And so always wanted to reform, conflict resolution. They didn't do a good job at it. So I was a salary district court mediator whenever I was at App State, because I had to work, obviously, through school to support myself. So I was able to do that. And then went on to law school to study dispute resolution and be able to reform family law. And so family law attorney.
A few moments ago, and I asked you about that. You said you reformed family law. How so?
So I created collaborative family law in a majority of our state. It had only existed in Raleigh before that, and so I infiltrated the rest of the state with collaborative family law. It's now incorporated in the general statutes. We also have the Uniform Collaborative Act, and then I created shared parenting. I worked in North Carolina at the General Assembly on our shared parenting bill, and then additionally in other states. So Tim Moore's a good friend of mine. He was actually a co-sponsor of the bill. Norm Sanderson was a co-sponsor of the bill, and then so 7 other states have actually had that reform and finalized that bill, and I was able to help with that on the National Parents Organization.
We're talking with Ashley Nicole Russell. She is candidate for U.S. Congress and seeking the Republican nomination, and we're going to get into the campaign here in a moment. Ashley, your efforts now in law and also in the area of divorce, how does that prepare you, do you feel, for politics? I can actually, I can imagine that quite frankly, but what's your thought in that regard?
So I think one of the most important characteristic of me in this campaign compared to everyone else is that I'm a political outsider. So I have reformed laws. I've been involved in policy reform, but I've never been a politician. And so I believe now's the time to show that you don't have to be a career politician to get things done, that you can go, you can get things done based on passion, not because you've been there for 30 years, that you can be committed, you can have grit, you can, get the job done without staying forever. And I've done that all throughout my life. So I'm only 39 years old. I've already reformed family law. I can promise you that domestic attorneys and the bar are not necessarily easy to reform, but I did it. And our country needs help. This district needs help. I'm a big Christian, and when Charlie Kirk was assassinated and then thereafter they redrew the lines, I really felt like it was my calling. It didn't, I don't know that necessarily what I've done in the past dovetails into next, Republican candidate for Congress, but I do think it's a really beautiful portfolio that can turn into a model that I hope to set. I think we need to start to have people who go, spend a few terms, return home. I have children. I have a beautiful life here. I live in Paradise in Atlantic Beach. I don't plan to move to D.C. and have a permanent residence there. So I hope to be that model, because we need that in order to get rid of the bloat in Congress.
Let's talk then about, and you've segued beautifully into my
You're welcome.
Point of all my points that I wanted to touch on. Let's talk about your motivation now insofar as moving into an area that is, as you just said a moment ago, very unique to your experience. You're not a politician. You haven't been chasing votes in the past.
Never.
Now that you're doing that, what do you find in your conversations with in your meetings with potential constituents? And as you're asking for, I assume you're here, you're asking for votes, right?
Yes, I am. Prayers and votes. So I've also been doing that in an uncharacteristic way. There was actually just an article in the News and Observer about the fact that we have an RV, and we've been taking it around all 25 counties. having real kitchen table conversations by being in Walmart parking lots, at little diners, breakfast places, camping, RV campgrounds, to be able to talk about what people are really interested in and what's really affecting them. And, my team, you want me to sit in a room and fundraise all day and make calls, but I think you've got to get out into the public, be with the people, understand face-to-face, shake hands. So I've kind of taken a turn on that as well and done it in my own way. And what I've really learned is, there's obvious topics here. We need affordability. We need to bring down prescription prices. We need to bring down the cost of everything, but specifically property here. We want I want my children to be able to move back here and live here. That's a huge hurdle now because of what it costs to live throughout District 1. We have beautiful God-given water views. So there are a lot of things that I hear. I hear also about tariffs and how they're actually not as bad as people thought they were going to be on the different businesses. Agriculture and farming, that's a big part of the northeastern part of this district. And the incentives that we can provide for farmers versus what the Green New Deal did with solar panels and wind turbines, which I am not necessarily for. But I do think that there are a lot of programs I've learned about, a lot of issues, and I've been able to do that through the RV.
Ashley, you bring up the issue of agriculture, and let's talk here for a moment about the economy of coastal North Carolina. Mm-hmm. We've had some disputes also in the area of fisheries and things, that particular area, the disputes between recreational and commercial, mm-hmm. Also the impacts that farming has had on both the environment, but also, and it came up in a recent debate or forum, the issue of wind turbines and how farmers are now having to, or
lease their
are
land.
deciding to basically get out of the farming enterprise. Mm-hmm. What do you see as the economy, future economic, what do you see as the future economic of North Carolina?
So North Carolina has an incredible industry in a lot of ways. Our business here is amazing. The farms that we have here are incredible. We can produce almost anything in North Carolina, which is it is incredible what we can produce, not only for our state, but for all the other states in the United States of America and other countries as well. And so I think we have a very strong economy. I think we have it in District 1 had supreme representation. That's the problem. There's a lot of head knocking around between commercial fishermen and the shrimping industry and all of that versus what's happened with setbacks and fisheries and those types of things, and being represented and being able to say, okay, what's really the problem, have that representative voice to be able to speak that problem and then come up with a result. I've been doing conflict resolution and negotiation for my entire career. Donald Trump is an incredible negotiator. Mm-hmm. He is able to get things done because he can negotiate. He can see a plotted line towards a path, and he can also see other options that can get there. And I think that that's a really important piece of it. I do think that there are lots of solutions that can come about. Like I said, for both commercial fishing and for the farming industry, I think that there need to be those same incentives that we were giving under the quote Green New Deal to some real issues and to real probative resources that will be able to give back to our economy and give back to this district. And so they need to be rewarded, and they need to be rewarded in more than just a tax incentive. There are a lot of ways to do that. And so I think that's one step in that direction. But I think business is strong in North Carolina. I think we have a lot more business coming here. I think the tariffs have driven people to buy more American. Mm-hmm. I think that is bringing American economy and manufacturing back, and we've got a lot of land, not necessarily farming land. I would want to preserve our farming land, but we have other land that can be used for that. And I think one other idea that I have that I think we should really use, because technology is something that needs to be handled and wrangled, but we can't get rid of it. And there are data servers that we would be able to put in and create very high-level jobs here for our children to have, for our residents and constituents to have, that are not solar farms or wind turbines. They're different, but they would be able to, and they take land, but not necessarily farming land. It would be more like timberland, where we could create tons of jobs and create a beautiful industry for ourselves here in North Carolina. And that's just one of a number of different types of manufacturings that have come on board due to technology.
We're talking with Ashley Nicole Russell, an attorney, by the way, just to make a mention of that. We got a lot of attorneys in Washington, D.C. Do you see yourself as one of them?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right, let's talk here now about your campaign and how does it differentiate from the others that are on the campaign hustings as well.
So, like I said, I'm a political outsider. I think that's probably the biggest piece. And I don't just claim to sign the term limits pledge and then get up there and not be able to turn that around. I'm the real deal with that, and I think my life to this point has proven it. Additionally, Christianity and faith is a big part of my platform. So faith, family, and freedom is my platform. I do believe that, God in Romans, he says he appoints all governing officials. Now, obviously, when Biden was in office, I was not convinced he was actively governing the ship. But in retrospect, I do believe that, what we see now and what's happened now, I don't think that we would have been able to see how extreme it could have gotten during that time to be able to get here now. So I do think that there's a purpose in that. So at the end of the day, God is at the hand of whoever's going to make it into office. And I do have full faith in that. I think that that's been a huge part of my campaign. People really are very drawn to the fact that I'm able to be so brazen about my faith and forefront about it. Like I said, Charlie Kirk is really the reason why I did this. I think that due to his faith and his politics, he was murdered, and that's really not okay.
Well, Archie, before you joined us, I was talking with Michael Watley a few moments ago, and of course he's running for U.S. Senate. And he brought up Charlie Kirk's name as well. And one of the questions I asked him, because I asked him this years ago back when he was chairman of the GOP in North Carolina, as well as during his foray as chairman of the RNC. And again, I'm very appreciative of Michael's accessibility. I'm able to get hold of him, and I thank him for that. Very comfortable relationship that we have. But one of the things that you mentioned, Charlie Kirk, is the youth vote. What do you find in your forays, in your conversations, as you've been traveling across the state? Because just before you joined me, I was talking about the circumstance in Charlotte, where we have a sheriff who doesn't even realize that he works for the executive. He thinks he works for the judiciary. And he also had expressed his unwillingness to support or even follow federal law when it came to, for example, immigration. So my question to you is, what do you find in your conversations with those young voters? Because they are eventually going to be the ones who are driving the ship.
They're driving this ship in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of moderate independent voters in this election. Right. That is a big deal. And they're all under 50 years old. Okay. And guess who's also under 50? That would be me.
Because I wanted to bring up the issue, the growth of the unaffiliated voting registration.
It's very big for this election.
Fast, and it's continuing. What does that say to you as a candidate?
It says that they're mine for the taking, they're ours for the taking in the Republican Party. They've fallen away from the Democrat Party because they've gotten so extreme, and they realize that's not a base of who they are. The people of District 1 still have faith, family, and freedom as the core of their character. That's just reality. So with the crazy ideas that they have around gender and just, even when it comes to the SAVE Act.
Are you able to identify the difference between male and female?
Yes, I absolutely am. And there are only 2 chromosomes. We cannot make up new ones.
By the way, she gives me every indication she is a female, and that is Ashley Nicole Russell. All right, but the other aspect of that question, Ashley, is that they haven't necessarily glommed on to the Republican platform as well. These are, I see them as neutral voters. They haven't really made their mind up. What's your thought in that regard?
I think they're keeping their independence in their party affiliation because they feel like they want to vote for a person, not a party. And I think that's a big headline right now for a lot of young people. And I have a lot of interns. So I've had 150 interns through my career already. And I believe very much so in the form of apprenticeship because, I was not able to get here because my family didn't know anyone. We were poor. And so the only way I was able to get here is through internship. So I turned that around as soon as I became a professional. I started doing the same thing and giving back. So I have a lot of children who run through my office. And there's something about that, they keep you bright-eyed and bushy-tailed too whenever they're around.
They challenge you.
They do, but what they really believe in is an identity that is independent of a party. That's the biggest banner that I hear about. But they are conservative.
Right.
They are conservative. They just don't want to identify as the party because of a historical perspective that they have or have been taught that is, I don't think, true, but it's what they feel. But I do believe they are conservative. I do believe they're going to vote in this election. I do believe they're going to vote for me in this election because I am very clearly the youngest candidate that's running for this position. And I do think that they want someone who looks and feels like their type of energy, that has their type of spunk.
As we wrap it up with you, Ashley Nicole Russell with us this afternoon, and again, candidate for U.S. Congress District 1. Mm-hmm. Last comment from you. What's your thought?
I do want to say one thing I hear on the trail a lot is people are very confused as to what district they're in. A lot of people in Carteret and Craven, Beaufort, Pamlico, they don't even know, that they've been redrawn. And so they'll be like, well, I'd love to vote for you, but I can't. And I'd be like, no, you absolutely can. You're part of this. And so I think, for all of you who are listening, if you're hearing this, most likely you are part of the new district, but Craven and Carteret are part of the new district, District 1.
And actually, even a little bit of Onslow, Swansboro.
Yes, the little blip in Onslow. I've actually spent a lot of time in Swansboro. I love it there. And then, so it's a beautiful area. It's a large area. Just check, be informed. 23, but 2 blips of 2 other counties.
In essence, my calculations are, we've got 100 counties.
1/4 of the state.
It's practically 25% of the state.
Yep. And I've hit almost every piece of it.
Have you really?
Yes. We've been to 20 of the 25 counties.
Wow.
Yep. And so another thing is I want to be a representative of everyone. Okay. I believe that I can do that. That internship program will dovetail nicely into me being able to have real satellite offices in almost every single one of these areas, and to be accessible. And accessible because I'm not a career politician. I'm one of us. I'm for the people, by the people.
All right, I want to thank Ashley Nicole Russell for taking the time to be with us. I'm going to ask you to sit here for a moment as I wrap things up here in a few moments here on Viewpoints on the Talk Station. Again, just to remind you, she's candidate, seeking the Republican nomination for District 1, the new district, which comes effective January 1. Stay with us.